I read your comments and I heard your concern about the safety of this trigger. Now, once again, this trigger has a very short travel, very short over travel, and this makes it a very short reset. Because of this, it's super fast, but it's not super light. It will not just go off by itself. You have to make a decisive trigger pull. Now, trigger is now set. So it is drop safe. If it wasn't drop safe, we would not sell it. Let me show you the correct installation of the MIMTAC performance trigger for your AR. Here we have the Windham Weaponry AR, mostly mil-spec. First thing you do, remove the magazine, check if the gun is empty. You take apart the lower from the upper. To change the trigger, you will have to remove the safety. And to remove the safety, you will also have to remove the pistol grip. When you remove the pistol grip, you will see this long spring. Do not lose it. And here inside, it's actually a plunger, a small plunger that acts on the safety. You can leave it inside and you can remove the safety, but just be careful if you will be turning your lower around too much. It can fall out, and just watch out you don't lose it. I have a bit modified mil-spec trigger, so my safety doesn't want to go out unless I remove the trigger first. As you can see, I'm using a universal disassembly, assembly and cleaning tool. When you have the trigger out of your lower, you can use this opportunity to clean it out. The MIMTAC trigger comes pre-assembled in this cassette, so you only insert it into the lower. Now, before we attach the pins, we have to get the safety in. The trick is that you will have to move the trigger a bit so the safety clears it. And when the safety is in, you can insert the pins. These go in from the left to the right side. We add the connecting rod that acts as a washer and attach the screws. Since there's not much force acting on these pins, you don't have to super tighten them. What I do is I just use my finger to hold the pin in place and tighten it. For me, that works well enough. If you're paranoid about losing the screws, you can use some medium strength thread locker, but in my experience, it's not needed. Now here we come to the most important step. You can see that the trigger has some slack in it, and we have to remove that. Inside the trigger cassette, there are two holes with screws that have to be tightened against the receiver to lock the trigger in place. To do that, you'll need a hex key, and first to remove the spring out of the way and then tighten the screw. What I like to do is first just easily tighten one screw, then go to the other one and then change it a couple of times to tighten just to the limit. Now here, use some common sense and do not just brute force it, because you will either break the hex key or you will destroy the screw. Now with the trigger installed, we put the plunger for the safety back in, and we will install the pistol grip, but do not forget about the spring here. When you're attaching the pistol grip, watch out so you will not bend or pinch the spring in this part. This finishes the installation, but we will do the final check with the rifle assembled. Because if you will dry fire the trigger with the lower removed, you can break your bolt catch bolt release. Let's do a simple function check. We rack the bolt, put the rifle on safe, and try to press the trigger. In this case, the trigger does not move and does not fire. So this is really good. If you have the safety on and the trigger fires, that's obviously not good, it should not happen, and you should not use that trigger. Now we move the selector on fire, we press the trigger and it works. We are still holding the trigger back, and we rack the bolt and now slowly release the trigger. You should hear a click when it resets, and press it again, fires. This trigger seems to work okay. One thing to note here, This trigger works similar to a mil-spec trigger, so if the hammer is not cocked, you will not be able to put it on safe. This step is optional, but you can do it if you want to be 100% absolutely sure that the trigger is safe. You rack the bolt, put the rifle on fire, and perform a drop test or an impact test, for example like this. Whatever you're comfortable with, or however you use your gun. And then if the trigger still fires, that means that it did not fire when the rifle was dropped. This means that it's safe.